All right. So let me catch you up on where we are and how we got here. We are in Moab, Utah. I guess officially 30 minutes north of Moab on BLM land, which is Bureau of Land Management. So it's basically government land that you can camp on. And you probably know, if you know us or if you've been watching us, that we have never really boondocked beyond a harvest host or so, and I don't really think that's official anyway.
It's like dry camping. The way I see it is, um, like with Harvest Toast, you have a reservation. You have a spot that you go to set up on, which is a little different than boondocking, where you just kind of go out onto public lands and you set up your RV and you stay there. So I think that's probably the key difference between the two, at least in terms of how I define it.
So we got here because we're in full-time families, and I put a post on there about my son and Minecraft, and I was very fortunate to have another mom, Jamie, reach out, and then we just connected that we were roughly in the same place, and we were both headed to Moab. And so she invited me and the family, of course, to this boondocking spot in Moab. So we have been here. We got here Saturday, and it is now, what day is it? Monday? Tuesday. Tuesday. It's Tuesday. So,
but it's a week later. Yeah.
It's a week later.
Week and then Tuesday.
We've been here 9 days. So we have done 9 days of boondocking, and I'd have to say that if it wasn't for Jamie and her family and the other 11 families here with us, we would have never made it that far. So I'm going to kind of tell you how they've helped us, and then kind of get to tip one, that if you can possibly boondock with more experienced people, it's just a game changer. I really think I know that if we weren't with other families who have helped us out tremendously, we would have made it maybe, what do you think, two nights?
Yeah, probably 2 nights.
2 nights. So, and we've made it 9 days. And so we have, in the process, learned a ton. Like, it felt to me like it was the first week of RVing all over again.
Yeah, there was a lot of information coming at us all at once, and we were trying to absorb it as much as possible. And one main thing we understood is we're not really set up for boondocking for a very long time. So we need to make some adjustments to be able to do that.
Right. So if you can find people willing to boondock with you that have been doing it, find it and reach out on forums. And there's boondocking Facebook groups. There's full-time families. There's all places that you can connect. And so the ways that people helped us, I'm just trying to name just a few. We'll get to some of these in the tips, but let us borrow their bladder, which we'll explain, to give us water, fresh water. We borrowed solar. We borrowed internet. We borrowed knowledge to help us get our bypass on our refrigerator that broke. What else?
They offered to let us borrow their generator, but we actually went and bought one.
So I guess tip number one is, if you can possibly boondock with someone who knows better, I highly recommend it. Because again, we wouldn't have made it 9 days without these wonderful people that we're boondocking with.
Right.
Tip two, I guess you want to talk about finding a spot.
Yeah, so we didn't actually find this spot. So I'm kind of speaking from what I've heard and what I kind of understand. Campendium is a pretty good app to find spots. So you go to their filter and you select free, and it'll show you spots that that you're allowed to go and do what they call dispersed camping on, which is basically free camping. And then, so the person who found this spot for us did a few hours of scouting. So he went and checked out different spots to make sure that the spots were accessible, to make sure they could fit bigger sized RVs, to make sure they were level, to make sure they had good cell signal. So these are all things you kind of need to think about. It really depends on your situation. And he was scouting it out for a group of people, and we all have different internet needs and so on. So he found a really good spot.
I'm sorry, the kids are fighting outside. Yeah, and there's different things that have turned me off from boondocking, or what I thought was the expectation was that you'd have no cell service. Here, there's fantastic Verizon, so we haven't had any issues there. Also, the scouting piece, people have said if you go to popular boondocking spots, you have to get there early. and to make sure you get a spot, or then you have to go to your backup plans. And luckily, this was scouted for us. But there's another approach we learned from someone else, Eric, and his family. They don't like to get up early and go scout. So what they do is just make sure that they are at their boondocking spot, preferably on a Monday to a Wednesday, so they can go when they want and have better luck.
I think the way that I'd like to do it in the future is, if possible, get an RV park the first night and go and stay in the RV park and then scout out some of the different areas around to see where we're going to set up for a longer period of time to make sure they're good for us.
Yeah, so that's finding a spot. So let's talk about all the things that we didn't have that we need. I think that's important. Should we just start with the generator?
Yeah, so first of all, we need a way to recharge our batteries. And we're doing that with the generator. So what I ended up doing is I went to Harbor Freight and I bought the Predator 3500 inverter generator. And that should hopefully be enough to where we can run our at least one AC when we're in the South. We don't need it now for the AC, but at some point I think we will. But we also need it mainly to recharge our batteries. And for us, we needed to actually use our plugs because we don't have an inverter. And what an inverter does is it actually takes 12 volt DC power and converts it to 120 volt AC power and then delivers that power to our plugs. So we can't actually plug into our receptacles unless we're hooked up to a generator. So that's the main reason we need that, but we'll need it even in the future just to keep our batteries recharged. Maybe at some point we'll go solar, and hopefully, out in the desert here where it's sunny, we'll have enough solar to provide power to us. But of course, we also need bigger, better batteries. So what people have recommended if we really want to boondock for a while is to get lithium batteries. I guess they're the best of the best, but they are more expensive. So there are in-between things you can do. I'm not an expert on it, so I don't want to go into that too deeply. We haven't actually set ours up yet. But definitely if you're going to boondock for a while, you're going to want to do your research and find better batteries.
And a generator was one that I've been too cheap to invest in, because when we first started RVing about 3 months ago, it just felt like it was a huge investment to go put out there, not knowing if we're going to need it or not. And now that we've gotten a taste of boondocking, that we want to do it more, and so it's totally worth it. And plus, we have spent 9 nights here, which means that we've saved money by not paying $50 a night for a campground.
And the Harbor Freight generator, it's quiet and it has good reviews, and it's a little cheaper than some of the other ones. So if you go Honda, that's the brand name that everybody really respects. They've had a lot of longevity in this, and people really want those, but they're way more expensive. So the Harbor Freight one I got was, I believe it was $769, and so far so good. We haven't had any problems with it. Of course, we've only had it like a week, so
stay tuned. There probably will be. And then an inverter is something that we want to have later, because even with a generator, we're not going to run it all the time, obviously. It'd be nice to have some plugs. So we generally run our generator to obviously recharge our battery, to have things like light, be able to flush the toilet, those things. But it'd be nice to be able to have an inverter to be able to use our plugs and not have to run the generator.
All right, let's talk about fresh water. So first of all, of course, you want to fill up before you get here. But if you're going to be boondocking for a while, you want to go refill your water without having to hitch up and go get water. So first of all, you need to find water, and we've kind of got it from other people, told us where it's at. But I believe on Campendium you can also do a filter for places that have fresh water, and then find it from there. I think a lot of the truck stops like Pilots and Flying J's have it as well. So you'll just need to kind of scout that out and figure out where to get it.
And some are free and some aren't. So it just depends how thrifty you want to be. We found free water, but if it would have been easier to go somewhere else, we would have paid $5 for water. It's usually not expensive from what we're finding, but sometimes it's free, sometimes it's $5 or $10.
Free ones, I think, are not always the case, but I think they're generally going to be more crowded just because they're free, which may not always be the case, but sometimes it may be worth it to pay a few bucks to go and not have to wait in line.
Because I mean, we did have to hitch up and dump and do everything, and it's just a process. Like if you've got your spot, and we're lucky here because, like I said, there's 11 other families, and so your spot's not going to get taken. But I understand in some boondocking spots to go hitch up and leave, you may lose your spot. So
you want to talk about the bladder?
yes, because this was the coolest thing ever. Like this, I've never heard of it, never seen it, no idea. But Jamie introduced us to this thing called a bladder. And the bladder is just a big water holding device that you can fill up with fresh water and then you pump into your tank. And so we used hers twice, and it's just amazing because you can just go take that in the back of your truck, get the fresh water, and then pump it into your rig. That's all there is to it. But I just didn't know such a thing existed. So
you want to get a food grade safe one since you'll be consuming and using it in a way that you want food safe.
Right. So that's definitely one of the things that when we get settled down for the holidays at my dad's, we're going to order a few things that's on our list.
Okay, what's next?
Dumping.
Okay, so you have two tanks, or two types of tanks. You have the black tank, which some of you may already know is the sewage that comes from the toilet. The other type is the gray tank, which is basically wash water, so washing dishes, showering, washing hands, using the sinks and stuff like that. So gray water is going to be a little bit cleaner, probably a lot cleaner than the stuff that comes out of the black tank. So first of all, for the black tank, there's not much getting around it. There are strategies to potentially, we heard about use a macerator to grind it all up and then put it into a different type of bladder and then take it to the dump station.
Not to be confused with your drinking water bladder.
Yeah, different kind of bladder. So I don't know that we'll ever do that. It sounds complicated to me. The black tank usually lasts a while, and I think at that point we'll just have to hitch up and go dump. The other subject is the gray water. That is questionable. Controversial. People do different things with their gray water. Some people think it's okay to dump it if you, say, put it in a tub, like when you're washing dishes and you have a basin, you go and just dump it out. Other people are okay hooking up a hose to their gray tank to push the water out to a spot that hopefully is not in use as much. It's basically just like soap and water, and sometimes there's some kitchen debris from washing dishes in there, food stuff. So it's really a matter of, one, opinion, but two, also where you are. So we're talking specifically about BLM land, and you probably want to do your own research. I read an article. It said they're okay with wash water going into the land. But if you have an opinion on it, I'd love to hear it. We haven't really completely decided where we stand on this issue yet, so I'd love to hear reasons why we should or should not disperse some of our gray water out when we are on BLM land. But other places you have to do your research because they may just not allow it, and you can't do it at all. So then you just have to really conserve really well.
Which we're not good at.
Don't take as many showers. Find other methods to wash dishes that are more conserving and stuff like that.
Yeah, so, like our friends here who've been doing it for a year plus, they all have these strategies where they'll get like a basin to catch the water and make sure that they, dispose of it safely. But they have all of these strategies. We haven't quite employed those yet, so we're again newbies learning about boondocking. But I'd love to hear, comment below on what do you do with your gray water when you boondock. Love to hear that. Mm-hmm. Are we done with this? I got one more thought that just popped in.
Go for it.
Trash. So when you're in a campground, there's trash, obviously, dumpsters everywhere you can dump your trash. BLM land, obviously, you don't dump your trash outside, so you've got to go scout for trash cans. And it's just one extra thing to consider. So we have used gas stations primarily to dump our trash in. And it does kind of make you think, I kind of generate more trash than I thought we did.
Mm-hmm.
But last night we're having a really tough time. We had a really exhausting, like late going to the laundry, going to the grocery store, and then we're like, oh, we've got like 4 bags of trash because we took other people's trash. It's not all of ours, but and then we couldn't really find a dumpster. So luckily at the national parks there were a few dumpsters trash that we could get that in, but we still have one that we have to dispose of. So it's just a reality of boondocking.
Yeah, I think the truck stops, when we stopped at that, I think it was a Pilot J, they had trash cans all over. All right, so we are back. We just got disrupted by our children, which happens sometimes, but now we are back and ready. So if you can recall, we were previously talking about trash and dumping trash, but I think we were done with that. So where are we going next?
We lose our train of thought quite frequently these days. I think really what I just wanted to end on was kind of who would enjoy boondocking and who maybe wouldn't. And I would just like to say that the one thing is that if you like easy access to things like dumpsters, fresh water, and electric, if that's really important to you, which is completely fine, then boondocking is probably not for you. On the other hand, if you're willing to try new things, overcome some challenges, and maybe not take as many showers as you'd like to, and you want to save some money on campground fees and get an incredible experience, like the place where we are is gorgeous, and we wouldn't have necessarily this view in a campsite. Especially where we are now, Moab has a lot of construction, so we're able to stay out of the construction going on.
Yeah, so I mean, you definitely need to be resilient if you're going to be boondocking, especially at first. I imagine at some point you'll get your rhythm, and I imagine we'll get our rhythm. But so far, this 9 days has been pretty tough on us. Certain things like we didn't have access to our plugs, and my laptop doesn't hold a charge, so it's hard to work without the generator being on, and things like that. Were just pretty tough to kind of deal with. I felt a little out of sorts this week.
Yeah, I mean, our schedule has not been on point. Like the schedule that Steve created that we actually really enjoyed, just completely all went to hell this week. And even just talking about the plugs, our normal wireless solution needs a plug. And Verizon started throttling me once I got done with my data allowance, even though free data, they throttle you. So I had to borrow someone's Wi-Fi. I guess use them. I'm not giving it back.
So maybe try it out on a weekend if you have to work during the week and you're a little unsure about internet and computer charge plugins and stuff. I'd recommend that.
So I think really to truly finish it, on my part at least, I just want to, if any of our fellow families that are here boondocking with us are watching this, just a very sincere thank you to the support that you've given us. It feels like a little village. Like it's been an amazing experience, and we wouldn't have made it 9 days without you. So thank you for that, and thank you for watching.
I have one other thing to add too. There's lots of groups out there that you can find that connect online, and specifically through Facebook groups that you can join. So if you are thinking about full timing and you haven't figured out, and you're kind of like hesitant because of socialization and meeting other people, there are answers to that, and this is really our first week, I'd say, finding that. This isn't specific to boondocking, but
full-time RVing.
Full-time RVing. There are ways to socialize, and so don't let that stop you.
Yeah, and I said I was done, but I'm not, because that just led me to think that, we have 2 kids, they're 7 and 3, and they were getting a little lonely because it seemed like once the summer ended, kids weren't around as much anymore. So right now, them being around kids has been an amazing experience, and for them and for us, because we get a little bit of a break.
We could talk forever about full-time living, but this video is about boondocking, so we're going to stop right here.
You cut me off. It's done.
Thank you very much for watching, and if you have any questions or comments, please comment below. And remember, if you like the videos that you're watching with us and they're helpful to you, please subscribe so you'll be notified when we have future episodes. Thank you.